is coming. That's what at least one financial expert is saying. Charles Brown of CB3 Financial says
one of the brilliant moves that Kmart has done is to partnership with Facebook in these e-gift certificates, so you can actually
of government mismanagement. Charles Brown is the president of CB3 Financial Group. He joins us this morning from Chicago.
Significantly dropping. Basically, this is the year of the consumer.
Believe that they're capable of managing anything?
Well, it's sort of like handing the keys to the chicken coop to two wolves. Good evening, everyone, from Chicago. It's Thursday, November 5th. I'm your host, Charles Brown, Portfolio Manager with CB3 Financial. We're so glad you are here. From money and the 2020 election to clarity, this is CB3 Live, and it's going to be a special show tonight, guys. And that's because I've cut the slides by about 40% because we're going to focus on wall-to-wall coverage of the election. There's a good reason for that. The number one question that I am getting from people is it really possible for 1 year to have this much chaos? And I guess we're finding out that it is. For those of us in my age bracket, we will be telling our children, and if we live long enough, great-grandchildren, about this year. Times really can't get any crazier. But the second most asked question I've gotten in the last week is, when will we know? Now, it depends on, of course, who you listen to, because each side has a different story as to when we will know. But I want to tell you a little story about my father. He was the Attorney General for the state of Florida, and I know we have some Florida listeners tonight. This was in 1950, and so he was familiar with tense elections. And he said to me, son, I want you to know that when it comes to voting, the arithmetic is very important. But then he added, who's doing the arithmetic is even more important.
We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election.
My friends, I'm confident we'll emerge victorious.
After a 3-year assault on the Trump presidency from the media and liberal establishment, the 2020 presidential election has come down to a photo finish.
You know, months ago I wrote that if Donald Trump prevailed in this election, the people most responsible, I think, would be the media.
To all the posters out there, you have no idea what you're doing.
This unrelenting level of negative coverage from the media.
And to all the liberals in California and New York, you wasted a lot of money.
A lot of voters were turned off by it. They certainly turned off the news.
This is the worst return on investment in the history of American politics.
We're in this mess for just one reason: COVID-19. If it hadn't been for the pandemic, this would have been a normal election, with Donald Trump's policy record producing a second term. Sure, we'd have had the rioting that has become a trademark of progressive politics in the Trump era, but the coronavirus gave Joe Biden and the Democratic Party two winning ingredients. One, a Trump vulnerability to run on.
Our purpose in this race was to win so that we could protect the Affordable Care Act and that we could crush the virus.
And two, it produced the mail-in voting fiasco.
The delay that we're seeing is a sign that the system is working. This is a new system. We went into effect with Act 77 last year.
To be clear, most governors got positive approval ratings for their handling of the coronavirus. President Trump did not. And for just one reason. He made his pandemic press conferences about himself and caused an unavoidable erosion of public support. Still, it's hard to disagree with points made in Mitch McConnell's victory speech, that we are safer if we protect America's traditions.
This is no time to attack our Constitution like some outdated relic. These are the times it was made for. This is no time to tear down statues of our founders and heroes. This is the time to follow their example. This is no time to declare war on our institutions because one side is angry that the framers made it hard to achieve radical change. This is a time to defend all that we have inherited and pass it on even stronger.
For months, Mr. Biden ran a rope-a-dope campaign, avoiding policy questions developed by his famous personal trainer, Bernie Sanders, until the last debate.
Boy, I would transition from the oil industry, yes.
Oh,
I will
that's
transition.
a big statement.
But before hearing this fact, tens of millions of Americans already had cast their votes by mail, a method of voting that until Trump, the media considered open to abuse.
We went and looked back at press coverage of this issue. It wasn't until Trump was elected that the media changed its tune. Before that, the media used to refer to mail-in ballots as, fraught with fraud, or raising questions of fraud or integrity of the vote.
We conclude with a word on the incredible excitement surrounding this year's historic voter turnout. Would someone remind me again why the U.S. should abolish the Electoral College? This is a system of deep political engagement and America's great quadrennial pageant. Or it will be, so long as in 2020 we don't debauch it forever.
All right, guys. Sorry, I'm trying to answer questions here. A lot of things coming in on the message board. Let's get to our first question. How do you feel right now about the election? Answer A, Biden won fair and square. Answer B, we need to check if there was indeed voter fraud. Answer C, yikes, what happened? And that's supposed to be D, not C. We were editing this, guys, until about 20 minutes before airtime. Answer D, just glad the commercials are over. I'll give you a few seconds because of that 25-second delay. I'll check the message board here and see if we've gotten anything. So while this is happening and I'm checking the message board, waiting for you guys, I have less slides, as I said earlier tonight, and I am happy to answer questions. Sometimes when we have a guest, we ask you to ask questions. Tonight is that time, and that person would be me. I have had very little sleep since Monday. This is the energy you see tonight, whatever it is about 4 different glasses of pure leaf tea, black tea, which is really high in caffeine. Let's see what we have here. We need to check and see if there was fraud. That's B. Just glad the commercials are over for Thomas in Lake Geneva. B, I think we should elect a president based on land mass. Makes more sense than using the popular vote only. Yeah, it's really, it's difficult to do it based on just the population, because what happens is everybody's going to campaign in LA, New York, Chicago, Dallas, and nobody gets represented. I mean, that's why we have the Electoral College. I can obviously do a segment on that if we need to. But yeah, and Larry's saying, yes, none of these fit. We were expecting much fraud, but this much? Well, Martha, no, I don't think so. I frankly was stunned if even 20% of the amount of fraud turns out to be true. We're just in a mess. We really are in a mess as a country. Both parties have to ensure that this never happens again. And thank goodness the inauguration is not next week. Obviously, there's some time to look this over. But I'm again going to take some time here, guys. Got a little bit section on the U.S. economy, and then we'll get right to the election. NASDAQ, 32.5% back with that 3 handle for those traders out there. Russell and Dow still struggling to get positive for the year, even after these 4 strong days this week. And we'll get to this in a minute, but why is the market so strong? I mean, that's going to be the third most question that I'm getting since the election is, can we really believe this rally? And we will handle that, folks. But we're back to a 31%, 32.5 and a minus 0.5 between the NASDAQ and the Russell. The disparity between the NASDAQ and the worst performing index, it's just pretty amazing, guys. Our CG program, this is actually not correct. It says 40.7. We were up 5.57% today. So those of you in CG, and if you're a client, 100% of my clients have at least one CG account. We're at 46% on the year. I had some clients today that had the biggest single one-day gain in their portfolio this year. Now, that's not supposed to be bragging. I'm just saying, I mean, guys, this is in the middle of a pandemic, a recession, and a massive a litigation fight that is undoubtedly going to happen, and the market keeps performing. We're going to address this, but I'm telling you, this is one for the ages. It's one for the ages, guys. Part of the reason for this, look at the difference between the NASDAQ and the S&P 500. This is 2 days now. You know how I normally show you weeks or even years? This is 2 days, November 4th and 5th. Why is this happening? Okay, this is happening because big tech is winning. And big tech is winning because the market perceives that even if Trump comes back and somehow wins this because of being overturned by the Supreme Court, that big tech is still going to be protected. And if Biden is elected, certainly that's where the odds are right now, that big tech will not be threatened. There will be no breakup. So if this is equivalent to an election just before Standard Oil and Rockefeller, and him getting a ruling that, no, you won't be broken up, as opposed to what did happen in history. But that's what this is all about today. Okay? So why is the market so much higher? To me, the catalyst remains the belief that Congress will remain divided. Now, as recently as 5 o'clock this afternoon, that's just over 2 hours ago, Central Time, there was talk that maybe the Senate isn't going to stay and it's going to go to the Democrats. I don't think that's going to happen. Whenever that came across, and I do watch CNN in addition to Fox, I looked at the futures. They didn't move, and that's, of course, just overseas because the U.S. market was closed. But Congress likes, the public likes, or the investing market likes, a divided Congress. Why? Because it means that legislation with higher taxes or even a massive stimulus package is not going to happen. Do you think that if Joe Biden maintains his lead and is elected, that he is going to sit down and that Mitch McConnell, who was reelected, I'll get to Mitch in a little bit, and they're going to have a fruitful discussion with Nancy Pelosi? No. I think nothing happens for 2 years. That's just my belief. FOMO, if you don't know this acronym, I use it all the time. Fear of missing out. People jumped into the market. And I will remind you that 4 years ago on this date, or actually 2 days ago, when the market thought that Trump was going to win, the futures went limit down. And then by 1 a.m., they were almost limit up because the sentiment completely changed, and then the markets never looked back since November 8th, 2016. And that's what you saw here. And yet, again, same market behavior, but I got to say this again, folks. We're in a pandemic, arguably a really strong second wave of a pandemic. We are still technically in a recession until 3 readings of GDP declare that that's over. And that doesn't happen until December, late December. And the election chaos. And yet there's still this FOMO. And that's because, as I've been saying, I don't want to say I told you so, some people, and I don't know if they're online now or not, I'm not looking over there, we're saying, I got to go to 50%. I want to get out of the market totally until after the election. I'm going, I don't think that's a good idea. And why is that? It's because we are in a secular bull market. The power of the secular bull market exceeds the power of a pandemic, a recession, and election chaos. That is how strong a secular bull market is. Please do not be skeptical on me about this. That is how powerful a secular bull market is. It goes higher in the face of what should be just chaos. All right, that's my rant. The man who would be king. No, I'm not talking about Joe Biden. I'm not talking about Donald Trump or Mitch McConnell or even Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi. The man in that picture in the black and white silhouette, is probably now the most powerful person in America. His name is Jay Powell. He's the chairman of the Federal Reserve. He sets interest rate policy. Yes, he has to have 12 of his Fed friends vote with him, but I can't remember the last time, there's some traders on the line here, that the panel, the Federal Reserve Board, ever overruled the chairman. And Powell has played his hand and said, we're going to keep interest rates low. You want to bring on more stimulus? You can, but we're keeping interest rates low. And why is this so important? Because Jerome Powell can literally print trillions of dollars out of thin air without engaging in a tug of war with any political rivals. And I'm not sure about you, but I think there are going to be some heightened political rivalries now going forward if things stay the way they are. And it was already bad. It's only going to get worse. Jay Powell answers to no one. Let me say that again without slurring. Jay Powell answers to no one. All right? Gridlock in Washington could and will force the Fed to do even more. Fiscal policy, quantitative easing, and he doesn't need permission from anybody. He just needs 7 votes out of 12. All right? You'll be hearing more from me on Jay Powell and his powerful position as we head into 2021. Let's ask the next question, and then I'll check the question board here. The market is higher because investors, A, are confident the election is set. B, market is higher because investors are convinced prices are still reasonable. All right, the market is higher because investors, C, are hopeful that Trump will actually win. Or the market's higher because investors don't really care who wins. A, B, C, and D. Guys, give me your answer. Let me check the message board here. Keith Day. How can anyone say Biden won when he hasn't even hit 270 and he'll probably have Arizona taken away? Because they want to believe that is the answer, Keith. He hasn't hit 270. If he wins Nevada, he goes from 264 to 270 and squeaks in. I can't say probably on Arizona. It looks possible. But even ABC News, as left as you can get, has said it could happen. Could happen. Keep answering, guys. Chris, Electoral College is to the Senate as popular vote is to the House. That's an interesting assessment. Yeah, I'll get that. If we get rid of the Electoral College, might as well get rid of the Senate. Well, it won't happen. It won't happen in my lifetime. And Chris, you guys are going to have to figure that out. You almost millennials there. I don't think it'll happen because then there are no checks and balances. And if you get rid of the Electoral College, in my opinion, even if you had the 3/4 majority necessary to do it, I think you would see a dictator in this country within 25 years. That's my 2 cents. Okay, make sure the states have a slight bit more power. That's great analysis, Chris. The states are supposed to have more power, in my opinion. I am a pro-states investor and American. I want the most control in my house, then my township, then my county, then my state, and at the very end, if none of those entities can handle it, then the federal government can step in. That's just me. That's pretty much giving you my political bias. I'm new to this, but can you just print money that doesn't that seem to weaken the value of the dollar? It does. Now, that is a great point. That's excellent, Tommy. What happens when you print more money? Does that dilute the power of the dollar in your pocket? It does. What happens when you print more shares of stock? Does it dilute the people who already own the stock? It does. And that gets to, hang with me guys, that gets to a very important topic called scarcity of asset. And that is, I'm going to give you a little heads up here. In January, I will be doing a special webinar on something in which I am investigating and actually investing in myself. I always invest in something myself at least for a half a year before I will expose this to any of my clients, and that is cryptocurrencies. Many of the cryptocurrencies have what is called finite availability. There's only so much of it, just like gold, and they're not printing anymore. Okay, sorry, it's a long answer, but it's important that you see that. What do we have here? Do not care who wins, okay? The investors, and we're not talking about people here. We got a C, D, 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 C, D, C, the big D. Markets higher because investors don't care who wins. And as a pure investor, not a partisan, I believe that's true. I believe that's true. John Murphy, no blue or red wave equals gridlock. Okay. Well, hey, John, welcome. KD, all right, we got A's and D's are confident the election is set. That's certainly what the polls are saying, guys. Yes, for the states. Good. So you like my little rant on the states there, Martha? All right, guys. Again, I've got less slides tonight, so speak up. Ask anything you want to ask. Here we go. So the 2020 election. Now, this next slide may shock you guys. This is kind of proprietary data, but I think it's important that you know it. Okay, you ready? Everybody ready for this? Americans really don't like the other party. I rarely laugh at my own one-liners, but that's one, guys. Look at the chart at the top. Do you like people in your own party? That's actually at an all-time low, 70%. Okay, now look at the other party, just straight down. I mean, we're talking 25%. Families have, broken up over this. Certainly marriages have. We really take our politics seriously. And I'm going to say something that I may get in trouble for saying, but I am afraid, based on what I am seeing right now, that if we are not careful, we as Americans may be entering a new civil war. And I mean this as seriously as I can say it. This is not one based on the Mason-Dixon line. This is one based on red and blue, and I'm using that metaphorically, of course. I think that would be extremely harmful for America. I think we have to find a way to resolve this with truth, with integrity, with transparency, and yes, with civility. Pardon my soapbox, but that's what I needed to say. All right, you guys have seen this map. It changes. It's even changed since I put it in here. What I tend to look at are the betting markets, because when people have real money on the line, and by the way, almost $500 million, $500 million, that's $500 million has been wagered. It's illegal in the United States to wager. So these are done with offshore betting entities. You can see the percentages here. This entity, which is Predicted, which is then reported by SoberLook, still says Georgia is going to go to Biden. And it says Pennsylvania, 84 cents is going to go to Biden. 73 cents for Arizona, 87% for Nevada. And yet, you guys have read everything in the news that I have, I'm sure. You know that there are legal challenges in all of these states. All of these, we're calling them the Big Six, right? The Big Six. And that's because we were counting votes for a long time, and then they just stopped. Did anybody notice that? You could have gone out for dinner, taken a joyride out, come back, and, oh yeah, nothing's changed for 2 hours. Now, help me out on this, okay? Maybe you guys can fill this in answer over here. But when I watch Dancing with the, I don't watch these shows. That's why I'm going to get this wrong. But Dancing with the Stars, is that right? And then they go out and they take a vote, like who was the best dancer. And somehow they tabulate like 20 million votes in under a minute. Why does it take so long to tabulate votes? Well, that's a good question. Obviously, the voting techniques are different, but that's just something that's on my mind. Now, this is an interesting chart. This is the same Predicted that I talked about. Which party will control the Senate? Well, the polls were telling us that the Democrats were going to have a landslide. They were going to win the presidency. They were going to take over the Senate. They were going to increase their seats in the House. Well, they didn't take over the Senate. You see the big red line flipping there. Now, you can see at the very end of the day here, the red line dropping a little bit because there was one race that was too close to call. I think the Senate is going to be held, at least this is my projection, 51-49, which means that even if Biden is elected president, if it's 50-50, then that really means that he controls the Senate because Harris would then be the tiebreaker. But the market is saying, no, we're about 82% sure we're going to have a split voting body here. So what does this mean? I mean, why do we have such acrimony with these races? I mean, obviously it's because the down ticket races, as they call it, are just as important as the presidential race, at least to many people in many parts of the country. And there were quite a few surprises this year down ticket.
Thank you so much to the people of Maine. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you to the people of Colorado for your confidence and trust. I can't wait to be your senator.
We know grave challenges will remain before us, challenges that could not care less about our political polarization. We know our next president will need to unite the country, even as we all continue to bring different ideas and commitments to the table.
To my Democratic opponents and challengers and friends, if you want to meet in the middle, I'll be there on the issues that we all need to be working together, like infrastructure. We all have the same needs for roads and bridges and ports, right? We got a great country. Let's make sure it stays great.
Now, we have to continue securing additional trade deals like we just did with China, and we have to stop their bad practices. And you know, folks, there is so much more that we need to do.
I don't know if this has occurred to...
Thank you so much.
There we go. Let me get to the next slide here. So we have Senate races that have been decided in states where the presidential election has not been decided. Isn't that the same ballot? It was here in Illinois. Did you have a separate ballot for senators and representatives than you did for the president? Seems kind of crazy to me. I had a little plastic card, stuck it in the machine. I'm sure they just put that in, zick, 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 and there it is. You got some input on that and you want to put it in the chat, that would be great. So the key flips here, Republicans flipped that Alabama seat. Former college football coach, famous one actually, won that seat. Lindsey Graham, who you saw in the video, won a hard-fought race in South Carolina, although it was not nearly as close as the media was saying that it was going to be. And then John Hickenlooper actually beat a GOP incumbent. So there weren't a ton of surprises, but there were enough that I think there were some, people that thought they were going to win that did not, for sure. So if you guys have screen snap software, you might want to grab this. So if you're on a Mac, you just hit Shift Command 5 and then circle it, and then you can save this, look at it later. But this is a really good map. Trump remains ahead in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, and Nevada. It's like 7. I got to get the math on this. Yeah, it's less than 1% between Biden and Trump, and that might even have closed since I was able to grab this. It's really pretty amazing. And if you look carefully up there in Maine, this is a little trivia for you. Did you guys know that there are 2 states, Maine and Nebraska, that have split electoral awarding. So if you are in the 2nd District of Maine or 2nd District of Nebraska, it can actually be split. It was not split in Nebraska, but it was split in Maine, and Trump did get 1 vote there. So here's the thing. I want you to look at these bars. The blue is Democrat, of course, and red Republican. Look at the $110 million spent to defeat Lindsey Graham in South Carolina. He's the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, who is responsible for leading the hearings on Amy Coney Barrett. Probably some anger there on the Democrats for the way he got that through. And yet he still won, spending much less money. The next one is Mitch McConnell, Kentucky. Look how much more money was spent there. $90 million to defeat Mitch McConnell. And McConnell won by almost 10%. So, like the Beatles song, I'm going to paraphrase, money can't buy you votes, at least in many, many cases. And the only state, and that's Texas, and not by much, the Republicans outspent the Democrats. I think that's pretty important, that people are looking for issues. And no matter how many times you bombard them with caustic, black and white, creepy looking ads, that doesn't necessarily guarantee they're going to be loyal to you. This is the next one you need to screen snap, okay? I can't get all this on one screen without shrinking it. So just hit pause or else grab your screen tool. This is 4 different outcomes: Democratic White House, GOP Senate, Democratic House, Democratic White House, Democratic Senate, Democratic House, and then it goes on. Only 1 or 2 of these scenarios is now likely to happen because we know the House stays Democrat, although the Republicans picked up 5 seats. The Senate should stay Republican, although they lost 2 seats. And the White House could go to either, but it certainly right now looks like it's going to Biden. Less trade wars, if you can't see that second column there, ultra physical hawkishness, okay? Even though the president, if it's Biden, will not be a hawk, but it's going to be because of the Republican Senate, okay? Physical thrust, looking to get GDP up in the 3% area. Again, who has the most strength in this position? Is it Mitch McConnell? Is it Joe Biden? No, you guys now know if you didn't. It's Jay Powell, chairman of the Federal Reserve. So grab that and study it a little bit. It's pretty interesting, I think. So you can see how, depending on the blend of the House, the Senate, and of course the executive branch, how that affects our investments. Again, this is a financial show. It's impossible not to mention politics, but financially that does affect us. Not so much for this election, but well, it could be. Trump's election hinged on getting big gains in Miami-Dade. And he did this by courting Latinos and, of course, making the Democrats appear as the party of socialism. But here's the interesting thing here. He really changed this demographic. No American president has gotten this share of Hispanic votes ever in any nationwide election. Look at Miami-Dade. That's, as you might expect, Miami, and it's Dade County, Osceola County, Broward County. I'm a former Floridian. I know we have some Floridians online. He just outperformed here. And it's interesting that when a Republican can outperform with Hispanics, he's not only changing the Republican Party, he's changing the Democrat Party as well. Because he's taking a while. Those votes don't just go into thin air. What is taken from one party is received by the other. And to a pretty similar extent, although not as dramatic as Miami-Dade, Trump was able to do that in Starr County, Maverick County, Hidalgo, Cameron. Texas and Florida are the 2nd and 3rd largest population states, with Texas being 2nd, Florida 3rd, and California remains 1st. We'll see how long that lasts as the emigration of California continues. But this is a demographic, guys, to watch going forward, even as soon as the 2022 off-year election, okay? Because there'll be House and Senate seats in play. As I'm sure you know, we are locked right now at 264, 214. If Nevada announces that Biden is the winner, he will have 270, and he may declare victory. I candidly think that Nevada is going to save itself some egg on its face and wait until all the legal votes have been counted before they're going to make an announcement. I hope that they do. That would be wise in my opinion. But there are lawsuits happening: Pennsylvania, Nevada, Michigan, Georgia. I don't think North Carolina. I think Biden has pretty much conceded that he's lost that. Even though there's a wider margin right now in Georgia. And of course, Wisconsin, the courts are weighing a decision for the Trump administration to have that recounted. I'm sure you guys have heard of this 128,000 votes that were found. Of them, like 17 were Trump votes. I mean, guys, I can't corroborate any of this. That's why I come on here every week and Monday nights when I know more certifiable data. And the reason I wait is because I don't want to do any fear mongering or bring more histrionics into your life that you don't need. But that's where we are right now on this. Now, let's get to the most germane question, which is what happens with my investments? Let's look at presidential rankings after they have been reelected. And what is the 4-year change after a president has been elected? Well, the leader there is Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Now, he's coming out of the Great Depression, so he had a pretty good opportunity to be successful because stocks were so beaten down, many could argue there was no place to go but up. Second place, Calvin Coolidge in the Roaring '20s. Bill Clinton, who many people believe was actually a fiscal conservative and socially liberal. Dwight Eisenhower, Republican. George Bush. Donald Trump. Now, with an asterisk, because if we go back to February and we actually stopped the meter right there, Donald Trump actually had a higher gain. Now, we've since gone on to take out those highs. It's kind of complicated. He's always going to have an asterisk there because never have we had a bear market that lasted 6 weeks and then turned around to be a bull market again. And following him is Barack Obama. How about that? But you can see the rest of them there. But the point is that there are plenty of times that Democrats have had successful presidencies, at least if you view it that way, in view of the market. Okay? So let's look at when do you think this election will be called? And I'm asking lots of questions so I can go over to the panel here and answer anything else. Do you think the election is going to be called in the next 24 hours? And the reason I ask that is because if Nevada declares Biden the winner, then he's at 270. Answer B, within 96 hours, in other words, 3 days. Answer C, within a week, or D, just prior to the Electoral College meeting on December 14th. Let's see what I've missed while you guys are here. Peeps don't like Trump, but wanted Republicans in legislature. There's a bunch of people that like Trump, but there are a lot more that don't. At least that I said that too quickly. There are plenty that don't, Chris, but they do want conservatives in legislature. I agree with you on that. No one ballot, but we were giving Sharpies. Yeah, so Martha lives in Michigan, and that whole Sharpie thing is kind of the new hanging Chad from 2020. If you guys don't know about the Sharpie issue in Michigan, you might want to look that up. Chris, people either voted independent or omit Biden, but voted the red ticket on the rest. Yeah, and that could be. So, Charles, I see your optimism that Trump will triumph. And I would like to believe you're correct. I do believe that God always wins. Nothing happens out of God's control. I am an unabashed believer in God's sovereignty, and that's why I do what I do, because I want to bring that optimism and confidence that God has given me to you guys so that you guys stayed fully invested. Aren't you glad? Sorry, but I still get calls from, I want to go to the sideline. No, I just am scared. No, don't be scared. This is a secular bull market. It's a secular bull market, guys. It's more powerful than Trump, than Biden, than a recession, than a pandemic. Do not be skeptical on me on this, okay? Must ensure election integrity. Miami knows. Yeah, good, Martha. Mark Burns, how long will Biden be president? So this is a good question. So here's the thing. I said to someone, you realize we could have Kamala Harris as president for 10 years. And they go, no, 8, no, 10. Okay, so I know we're on a delay. I'm going to give you guys a reason to type in. While I'm looking at the rest of these, can anybody tell me why Kamala Harris could be president for 10 years? That's a good question, Mark. Chris, 2 years? I didn't even look down and see it. Chris got it. All right. Charles Todd, yeah. So Mark, C, D, we got. So let's go back and answer these questions now. Just prior to the Electoral College, Mark Burns, I think you're right. Within a week, Tom Zeneker. After December 1st, Martha, D, Charles. John Murphy, 96 hours. Yeah, you know what? If they call Nevada, nothing else matters because it's 270, so Pennsylvania doesn't matter. Hossein, A, within the next 24 hours. The only way this happens, Hossein, is in the next 24 hours is if they call Nevada and the Supreme Court quashes the Trump administration's request. Remember, the Supreme Court is now 5-4. Those of you that think it's 6-3, you're overestimating John Roberts, the Chief Justice, who has been voting more liberally than Lot would like. Okay, it's 5-4 with Amy Coney Barrett. All right. Anything else here? Nevada said they won't do a recount until December 1st. I have not seen that, Martha. Thanks for that heads up. 2 years with Biden and 8 on her own. Yeah, so what'll happen, Keith, and I think Chris pointed out earlier, if they can keep Biden alive and awake for 2 years and 1 day, then Kamala could assume the presidency, fill out that term, and then because she served less than half a term, remember 1 day, then she would be entitled for 2 full terms if the people elected her. So we'll see on that. So historically, guys, has this been positive for stocks? Okay. With a Republican Congress, not bad return. Okay. All right. Democrat Congress, not quite as good. But look at here, split Congress, 17.5%. Now, don't you think that investors, the big hedge funds, the Wall Street gurus know this data? They might be saying, look, we have to put our personal, partisan, ideological beliefs aside and look at the data. And the data says that split Congresses, House by one, Senate by another, has been very good for America. It has not been really bad. And in fact, if you look here, the S&P's average performance through the presidential cycle, this is 1872 to 2020, the big black line, we can discuss the other ones, but the big black line is Democrats in a second term. Democrats in a second term. Now, keep in mind that this is weighted, that really should be an asterisk, because this is weighted with Franklin Roosevelt having, 14 years in office, right? And he was there at a time when we were in World War II and gearing up for that. So it was a high GDP. It was, a bad time, certainly for us as far as Americans, but financially it was not a bad time. So S&P performance post-election day. Look at this, guys. S&P performance under Republican presidents 3 months later, 6 months later, 9 months later, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years later. This is kind of tough to swallow if you're a Republican, but the reality is, historically, and this is going back 60 years, I think we went back to 60 years, 4 years under Democrat. Why is this? Does this mean that Democrat presidents are that much more physically sound and friendly to markets? No, it means they spend money. Okay, they spend money. And when the government is spending, remember the government is 1/3 of GDP, although they're not weighted that way. You have government spending, you have consumer spending, and you have corporate or business spending. 70% of GDP in America, some would argue it's about 68%, is the consumer. But in previous lifespans, or 60 years ago, the government was an integral part or a bigger part of that spending, okay? I'm showing you this slide so that you're not concerned that if Biden ultimately ends up in the White House, we're going to probably be fine as investors. Historically, that is the case. 7.45% is the average rise of the S&P from 1929 to 2019, that's last year, during the 45 years in which one party controlled both chambers. Okay, but over, as well as the presidency. Okay, so that would be the first 2 years of Obama and the first 2 years of Trump. But over that same period, the index rose 7.26% during the other 46 years when there was a split. Okay, that's pretty close. That is really pretty close. Pretty much saying that whichever party controls Washington, stocks typically climb. And you saw that in the previous slide. People might ask, well, where's the dollar? Are we going to have the dollar weaken? Someone asked, well, gosh, that was Tommy, I think. If you print more money, doesn't that weaken the dollar? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's very true. Does this bode poorly for us to have a weaker dollar? Not necessarily. Do you need to have assets in your portfolio that can counter affect a weakening dollar? You do. We're going to cover that for you in January. All right. But this is what it looks like. So a weakening dollar means that we pay off our debts with cheaper dollars, but it also means your net worth is dropping unless you have assets that are keeping up with and exceeding the dropping value of the dollar. All right, guys. Last question. Let me read the questions over here on the bulletin board while you're answering this. Who will win the election? Donald Trump by the 20th. That's basically 2 weeks from now. Okay? 2 weeks from tomorrow. Donald Trump by November 20th. Joe Biden by November 20th. Donald Trump after November 20th. Joe Biden after November 20th. I'm going to check the screen here. Fill it in there. Here we go. Nevada won't do a recount. I mentioned that, Martha. That's amazing. I think the Supreme Court's going to say, you're going to do it sooner than that in Nevada. Yeah, if they call Nevada and pull Arizona, Biden doesn't get to 270, and you're correct, Keith, on that. Larry Walsh, you could be in for 11 or more years. I don't think it's 11. I think it's 10. But thanks for that observation. 2 elections. Yeah, okay. If Biden gets Nevada and Georgia, but Trump gets Arizona. What's the math on that? Well, Alaska still hadn't reported. Alaska hasn't gone for a Democrat since it was made a state, which was in my lifetime, by the way, 1959. Hossein, according to one analyst at the time, there's no reason for the Supreme Court involved in this election. Well, yeah, I'm sure that analyst was a left-leaning analyst. I assure you that there are many, many people that believe that the Supreme Court will get involved, simply because we had a judge order vote counting in Pittsburgh today. This has been on the news. You guys have been following this. To let Republican or Trump team people observe the counting. And the judge ordered it. The Trump people or the Republicans showed up and they were thrown out of the building. They said, well, no, we're just going to ignore that court order. So what happens then? Then you have to go to the circuit court. And if it's thrown out there, then it goes to the Supreme Court. These Supreme Court folks can be working around the clock. That's my opinion. Does that scenario, is it possible to have a 269 tie? Yes. And that means that the House of Representatives, held by the Democrats, would decide who the president is. Would you believe that the Senate decides who the vice president is? We could have a split ticket with Joe Biden as president and let's just say Mike Pence. We could even have Donald Trump as vice president. I kid you not. If it's 269, and then if Biden is declared incompetent, guess who becomes the 47th president? Now, there's only been one president that served a split term, and I'm going to give you guys a few seconds to fill this in, but Donald Trump could be, theoretically, the second president to serve a split term. And even if this is won by Biden fair and clear, Trump could run again at age 78 in 2024, and he would join this other president. Okay? What do we have here? We've got C, Trump after November 20th, Mark. Okay, Zinniger, yeah, good. Lots of C's. Holy cow, John Murphy. Joe Biden by 20th, says John Murphy. Thank you, John. Keith, Donald Trump after the 20th. B, Joe Biden by the 20th, so within 2 weeks. ICE Studios, B. Okay, Hossein, B. Major fraud about to be exposed. You know, I see that, Charles. I'll wait to see it when it happens. Attorney General Barr was going to make some announcements. Hasn't happened. The Durham report was going to come out showing all kinds of fraud. It has not happened. Dr. J, B by November 20th, K, people loses D. Well, that's what you think, K. I hear you. One vote per state. Can you explain that, Chris? One vote per state. Are you talking about in the House? No, that's not true. I don't know what you mean. Why vote? Just let the Supreme Court choose who they want to win. Well, of course, that's the problem, Deb. The Supreme Court was never supposed to be a partisan entity. It was supposed to interpret the constitutionality of laws that were created in Congress. That didn't work out too well. And we have a really third partisan entity right now. And that does not serve America well. It doesn't. I don't know what to tell you. Each state places a vote. Grover, very good. A+ for Chris Breitenbach. Grover Cleveland. The only president to serve a split term. 4 years. He was out for 4 years. 4 years back. We could see that if it's 269, although anything can happen in 2020. All right, guys, just reminding you, if you're new online tonight, I may have seen some new people here, please subscribe to me and you'll get notified when we're doing shows here. You'll also want to tweet. I was tweeting, I don't know if you guys got this, but I was tweeting like crazy until I basically went unconscious on election night. There was a lot of stuff going on, as you well know. But just follow me on Twitter. You'll see me there. I post simultaneously to Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Would love to have you join us there. Join the dialogue. Guys, it's just a crazy year. If you guys want the copy of this slide deck, I'm happy to send it to you. There's my email address. Been that for 20 plus years, cb3@cb3.com. Happy to dialogue with you. There's my phone number, email. If you have questions or input, we have a community of people, some of whom are my clients, some of whom are just interested people as investors and even as political pundits, and we welcome everyone to the show. I'd love it if you tell your friends about it. We like to think of it as a small community that's growing, where we can share investing, even political, even COVID ideas. And the important thing is, as I end every broadcast with this from 2 Timothy 1:7, for we have not been given a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power, love, and a sound mind. Everything I have been given in this life is from God. I try to use those abilities and those gifts to His glory to help you as investors, to give you confidence and to not be skeptical about the future for America. It's my deeply held belief that we as Americans will get past this most crazy of years in my lifetime and be stronger financially, we'll be stronger socially. I think we'll be more transparent politically. We will be strong morally. And we'll live in a better America. That is my sincere hope. Really appreciate you guys being with me tonight. It is Thursday night, November 5th. We still don't have a president. And while we do have a president, we don't have a president-elect. If you guys have things you want to talk about, during the week, before the next broadcast on Monday, please let me know. I'm just looking at the comments. Looks like I've caught up here. Appreciate you guys so much. Really do love you tuning in and being part of this community. I feel very blessed. And as I say, from COVID to money to the political 2020 season to clarity, this is CB3 Live.